It all began on a scorching summer afternoon, the kind where the air itself feels heavy and the streets of the neighborhood seem almost too perfect, too controlled. Behind the neatly trimmed hedges, the perfectly aligned trash bins, and the pristine lawns, there was an unspoken truth. One woman believed she owned us all. Her name was Marjorie Benson, president of the Homeowners Association, and if you lived on Willow Creek Lane, you either followed her rules or you became her enemy. From the outside, Marjorie was just another middle-aged suburban woman with a polite smile and a pearl necklace. But behind that smile was a steel grip, a hunger for power, and a dangerous obsession with control. She inspected lawns with a ruler, left warning notes on mailboxes, and even threatened to fine families for having the wrong shade of curtains. To the neighbors, she wasn't just strict. She was a dictator in heels. And me, I was her latest target. It started small. A note tucked under my door. "Your grass is 1 inch too high. Please address immediately." I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but within days, another note arrived, then another. Soon, I was receiving daily warnings, all signed with the same initials, MB. The final straw came when she stormed up to my porch, clipboard in hand, and declared in front of the neighbors, "You are ruining the image of this community. If you don't comply, I will have no choice but to escalate." That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about grass. It wasn't about property values. It was about control. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of fighting her head-on, I stayed quiet. I nodded politely, apologized, and pretended to comply. Because deep down, I was planning something she never expected. While she thought she was winning, I was collecting every piece of evidence, every note, every recorded confrontation. I had a folder hidden in my desk labeled Marjorie's Empire. And then came the breaking point. One evening, I came home to find a violation letter taped to my door in bold red ink. Final notice. You are in breach of community standards. Failure to comply will result in legal action. But attached to the letter was something chilling. Marjorie had taken a picture of my backyard. She had been on my property. That's when I knew. This had gone too far. But little did Marjorie know her empire was about to crumble with a single phone call. I dialed the number I had been saving for weeks. On the other end was a voice calm, professional, and authoritative. I explained everything, the harassment, the intimidation, the trespassing. And the voice replied, "Thank you for calling. We've had other complaints. We'll take it from here." I hung up and waited. Days passed, but the neighborhood began to buzz. Marjorie's usual morning patrols grew shorter, her confident stride faltered, and whispers spread like wildfire. Something was happening behind the scenes. Then, one Friday evening, it happened. A black sedan pulled up to her house. 2 men in suits stepped out carrying folders. They knocked on her door, and the entire street watched as Marjorie's perfect smile cracked. But this was only the beginning. The truth that came out next was darker than any of us imagined. Turns out, Marjorie wasn't just abusing HOA power. She had been embezzling HOA funds for years, taking money meant for community upkeep and funneling it into her personal accounts. The phone call I made? It wasn't to the police. It was to the state regulatory board that oversees HOAs. They had been waiting for a lead, and my evidence was the missing puzzle piece. Neighbors who once feared her now turned against her. Families she had bullied stepped forward with their own stories, illegal fines, threats, even blackmail. The queen of Willow Creek Lane had built her empire on intimidation, and now it was collapsing brick by brick. But here's the twist. Just when we thought it was over, Marjorie vanished. One morning, her house was empty. Curtains drawn, mailbox stuffed, no sign of her car. It was as if she had evaporated overnight. Rumors spread. Some said she fled to another state. Others whispered about secret debts and dangerous connections. Weeks later, an anonymous envelope appeared in my mailbox. Inside was a single note, scrawled in Marjorie's handwriting. "You may have won this battle, but you have no idea who you're dealing with." That's when the real nightmare began. Strange things started happening around the neighborhood. Cars with tinted windows parked across from my house. My trash cans were knocked over in the middle of the night. Once I found a brick on my front lawn with a message taped to it. "This isn't tea over." It felt like Marjorie was haunting us, even in her absence. Some neighbors grew paranoid, installing cameras and motion lights. Others whispered about her having ties to people beyond the HOA. People who didn't play by the rules. One night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps on my porch. My heart pounded as I grabbed a flashlight and rushed outside. Nothing. Just the faint smell of Marjorie's signature perfume lingering in the air. The tension grew unbearable, but then another phone call. This time, from the same regulatory officer. "Good news," he said. "Marjorie Benson has been located. She's facing multiple charges. You and your neighbors won't be seeing her again." The relief was overwhelming, but the fear never fully faded. Because deep down, I remembered her note, her warning, her promise that she wasn't done. To this day, whenever I walk down Willow Creek Lane, I can still feel the echoes of her presence. The neighborhood looks free, peaceful even. But every so often, I wonder if one day I'll open my mailbox and find another envelope, another threat, another reminder that sometimes the most dangerous battles don't end with the fall of a tyrant. They begin with it.